Hey, welcome back to Peer Power. We are going over unit number 5 today. This unit is peer pressure. Now, I say this at the beginning of every single unit, but I love every unit because they do build on each other. Now, the last unit was campus culture, and it was pretty intense. You know, campus culture is not on our radar. It's not understood. But peer pressure, we all have at least a basic understanding of what peer pressure is. Peer pressure may have a different definition and come out of a different well than what you may have originally understood. Peer pressure is the social enforcer of campus culture to conform to a certain expectation or behavior in order to fit in with one's peer group. That's what peer pressure is. We must remember that peer pressure is the symptom, not the primary issue. As long as you go after the effects of peer pressure instead of dealing with the root issues of campus culture, you will find yourself fighting an endless battle against an ever-resilient force. The symptoms will continue to reemerge, putting us in a self-perpetuating cycle of defeat. Peer pressure is very difficult to work with because peer pressure will always and continually just reflect the campus culture. So in this lesson, we are going to explore the similarities of hen house hierarchy and the campus social status hierarchy. I love chickens, so I love giving this example. If you have chickens, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and if you don't, they are so fascinating to watch. Next, we'll discover how peer pressure is eminently tied to emotional safety. We'll discover how modeling behavior is an intrinsic survival instinct. And we'll explore the nature and qualities of peer pressure. So, let's get started right in with the hen house hierarchy. I love chickens, especially cute little baby chicks with their tiny fluff ball bodies that fit in the palm of your hand. I love how they grow into little ladies, interacting with each other like girls at a slumber party. It cracks me up how they follow each other around the coop and casually chit-chat as they compete to be the lead hen. In many ways, the hen house functions like a schoolyard, for the good and for the bad. All the hens cohabitate in a seemingly harmonious community, but all the while they are each keenly aware of their status and everyone else's status within the chicken yard. An interesting behavior of chickens is that the girls establish something called a pecking order. There is something innately wired in these fluffy little ladies that establishes a hierarchy of rule within their ranks. The hierarchy designates any chick that is physically weaker or different than the others as an outcast. The girls will literally pick or peck on her until she dies. It's really quite tragic. Once she's removed from the equation, the ranks readjust to identify the next weakest chick in the roost, and the pecking order is redrawn. This hierarchy exists among the boys as well, but they don't pick on each other, they fight to the death, so that only one rooster remains to rule the roost with all of the hens. I call this the hen house hierarchy. Unfortunately, a similar condition is also present on many school campuses. Kids tend to establish a hierarchy of acceptance. Popular students are identified as the best, either in sports, social skills, appearance, academics, or even socioeconomic status. Almost instinctively, these students are deemed as better than the others. The masses model their behavior after these successful students in the same way our prehistoric predecessors modeled their behavior after the fittest to increase their own chance of survival. Like the hen house, those who are perceived to be weak are shunned. Children do not intentionally rate their peers, but rather instinctively gravitate towards those who exhibit desirable traits or abilities. I really love kids, all kids, and truly value each one for their abilities and quirks alike. I find it so upsetting that a single child would be picked on, And yet, all you have to do is spend 5 minutes observing a school playground, and you can easily identify who the children have ranked as popular, which kids are in the average range, and which are the wannabes, and which kids have been rejected. After millenniums of social evolution, survival of the fittest is still king of the hill at recess. Most schools have established policies for social tolerance. No policy, however, is immune to the henhouse hierarchy. In fact, the more insecure a child is regarding his own self-worth, the more susceptible he is to the peer pressure. Even if your campus was completely free of peer pressure, students will still innately rank themselves according to how they perceive that others view them. There is often no merit for their judgment, making any hope of rationalization irrelevant in these situations. Peer pressure is eminently tied to emotional safety because it perpetuates a constant awareness of one's acceptance and position within a social community. When a child is under constant pressure to prove he is okay, he does not feel emotionally safe, causing the instincts of survival to kick in. This insecurity affects every tier defined in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, each of which must be satisfied before a student can enjoy the final tier of self-actualization and innovation. Emotional security is a need that must be obtained on a school campus, but an administrator's definition of emotional safety may not match the children's definition. We were just talking about this in the last unit, that it doesn't really matter what we perceive as being safe. It's how that child feels in a classroom when they're being rejected by their classmates. That's where our safety measure comes in. Modeling. Now, modeling is an instinctual survival behavior that will prove to be a vital component of our campus transformation strategy, as peer pressure is driven by our modeling instinct. Some psychologists refer to modeling as the herding instinct because of the way it compels us to fit in, to become part of the herd. In the wild, the herd is what protects individual animals from predators. Those who lag behind or get separated from the herd become easy targets. In real life, this herding survival instinct is what gives power to peer pressure. If students didn't care about fitting in, peer pressure would have no power over them. Picture the brain as the central command center of our security system and the emotions as the security monitors. In the case of a child, the brain and emotions work together in unison to determine if the child is following accepted behaviors for survival. When the brain is unable to sufficiently understand its environment, it defaults to copying or modeling its decisions, responses, and behaviors after someone who appears to know how to operate within the given environment. This is called modeling. This modeling behavior keeps young children alive until their cognitive reasoning matures. As they watch their parents and siblings respond and function within a given environment, they simply copy their family's actions. Even at this early age, the brain is determined that if it doesn't know what to do, it is safest to copy someone who does. In ancient history, children learned what they needed to know by modeling after their parents while foraging and hunting, what foods were safe to eat, how to escape from predators, and how to prepare for winter. In modern times, children learn things through modeling, like looking both ways before crossing the street, safely browsing the internet, and proper nutrition. The act of modeling is a natural human instinct that supports our survival. These modeling behaviors include adapting and adjusting behavior to fit in. Laws of attraction help students to determine what behavior and actions are most desirable to increase their acceptance in the campus community. Students also learn justification when the behavior they desire to participate in is outside the brain's current guidelines of what is acceptable. Such modeling behaviors empower peer pressure. Now, when students are unaware of the highly complex dynamics of peer pressure, they can be pre-scripted into social roles. Students may feel like they've been pegged or prejudged to fit into certain stereotypes or social groupings within the school. When this is the case, students have difficulty breaking out of these scripted roles and may even begin to exhibit behaviors that reflect the expectations of those roles. Always made an excellent YouTube video about this called Act Like a Girl. I highly recommend that you watch this. In like manner, when there is a prevailing atmosphere on a school campus of violence, competition, or apathy, your students will subconsciously write a script to help them navigate that environment, even if the script they write is counterproductive. Survival of the fittest plays a major part in pre-scripted roles as students determine social ranking within their school community, how they fit into that ranking, and how to best survive within their role. All of this is done on a subconscious level, of course. So what exactly is peer pressure? Peer pressure is a real and perceived expectation to conform to norms or behaviors for acceptance. It is an intrinsic condition that crosses cultural, racial, religious, gender, and socioeconomic boundaries. Peer pressure is an invisible force that permeates every aspect of school life. It exists in every classroom, hallway, bathroom, and sidewalk in our schools. Is peer pressure good or is peer pressure bad? Well, peer pressure can be constructive or destructive, positive or negative, good or bad, depending on the purpose for which it is applied. Positive peer pressure helps students learn what is socially acceptable and what is not with regard to behavior that promotes honor, respect, and safety. Negative peer pressure is that which leads to deviant, harmful, or self-destructive behavior, either by the giver or receiver, in exchange for or to prove acceptance. These types of deviant behaviors include pre-pressured sex, drug and alcohol use, neglecting responsibility, and violence. Why is peer pressure so relevant to campus culture? Peer pressure is the single greatest social and emotional influence in campus life. Peer pressure affects attitudes and abilities to concentrate, information retention, safety, sense of well-being, learning environment, and test scores. When channeled positively, it can be your greatest motivational tool. Unchanneled, it can lead to campus culture disintegration. How is peer pressure expressed? Peer pressure can be verbal, nonverbal, and/or physical in nature. 3 types of pressure that can be categorized as verbal peer pressure are rejection, put-downs, and reasoning. Rejection is a favorite tool of choice on elementary campuses. It is a mechanism used by children to identify themselves with the in group and disassociate themselves with the fringe group. This stems back to our instinct to be part of the perceived strongest herd. Children can be brutally honest and cruel in their rejection and must learn values of inclusion, social courtesy, and empathy. Put-downs run hand in hand with rejections. Sarcasm is the weaponry of choice for middle and high school students. Something about putting another person down or slamming them makes this age group feel superior. Even if students are friends and genuinely like each other, put-downs tend to dominate conversations, being used over words of encouragement or complimentary statements. Reasoning is another form of verbal peer pressure that can come from either the persuader or the receiver. Reasoning or justification redefines deviant behavior as being acceptable. It can take the form of phrases like, "It's not so bad," "No one will ever know," or it can appeal to the need for conformity with phrases like, "Come on, everyone's doing it." Negative peer pressure can also be nonverbal. 3 common forms are the huddle, the look, and the example. The huddle is when a group of peers are huddled together, clearly measuring up another student. Huddles are meant to be obvious and to be noticed by the one being judged. The huddle approach uses the mechanism of comparison. We compare ourselves to others and they compare themselves to us. It's all part of fitting into the herd. Another nonverbal mechanism is the peer pressure of conformity. Conformity compels us to compare ourselves with others, then conform to eliminate differences. One of the strongest tools to force conformity is the look. Everyone knows when we've been given the look. We immediately check our hair, our teeth, our zipper, and anything else that could cause the look. The look tells us something we're doing is not deemed acceptable to the group. The third common nonverbal form of peer pressure is the example. Once we deem someone or something as acceptable, desirable, pleasing, or attractive, it becomes the example to follow. These example students are the trendsetters that all the other kids seem to follow in action or in style. The example can be a very positive influence on campus culture, but this power of influence sometimes leads to negative results. When an influential example student is not channeled into a positive leadership role, you may find yourself with a trendsetter setting unhealthy trends. Powerful personalities have a way of building a desirable bad boy or bad girl image that can set an example for others who want respect. If you analyze any fringe group, you will find a student who is the example at the center of it. They are your natural leaders. Finally, negative peer pressure can be physical. Forms of negative peer pressure include bullying, gang activities, rushes, dares, and forced participation in deviant or harmful activities. Physical violence associated with peer pressure is very real. It affects our students profoundly, and it can be deadly. A campus culture that is permeated with the survival of the fittest mindset will cultivate physical peer pressure as a natural escalation of the need to show supremacy. Even violent peer pressure, however, is still only the symptom of campus culture. There is hope. Little by little, we can address the root issues to promote positive changes. What makes peer pressure so powerful? Peer pressure is a complex, emotional, physical, and intellectual force that is rooted in the very survival mechanisms of human nature. It encompasses some of our most foundational needs of both physical and emotional security. It determines our acceptance among peers while judging our perceived worthiness to be loved and to belong. It has the power to conform our greatest fears that we are not good enough. And that's where the power lies, behind peer power. Until now, peer pressure has been the monster hiding under the bed. It has terrorized countless students, making their school years a nightmare instead of a launching pad to greatness. We've given our students all the inspiring prep talks and success tools we can muster, only to find the effects are limited. We cross our fingers and hope that our students will find their footing as they navigate through the social pressures of school, but many don't. What seems to be small seeds of insecurity in elementary school escalate through grade levels to the point that some students will hail high school as the best years of their lives, while others will deal with its scars for an entire lifetime. Peer pressure is a formidable force that will define our schools and our students according to the parameters we allow. It doesn't play games. Either you will define it or it will define you. There is a long-standing belief in the business world that there is no such thing as holding steady. Each business is either gaining ground or losing ground. And if they think they are holding steady, they are most likely losing ground. The same is true for campus culture. If we are taking active measures to define and transform our campus culture, then we are on our way to a dynamic, vibrant campus atmosphere. If, however, we are not actively cultivating our school culture, we are allowing it to define itself. This is a dangerous proposition. Thus far, we have been thoroughly examining the problem holding back our students in campuses. Now we will turn our attention to answers. With better understanding, we can take the necessary steps to perpetuate lasting change. Your assignment for this unit is called Bugs and Slugs. We are preparing a soil to be able to handle campus culture changes that we are about to build into our programs. So if we have these tender little seeds that have thistles and weeds that are coming against them and rocks, we also have bugs and slugs. Now I'm from the Northwest. Everyone's got bugs, but we have a proliferation of slugs, and they eat everything in their path. Unhealthy peer pressure devours our students' potential. I want you to give me an example of each of the 7 different forms of peer pressure that you've observed on your campus. Write them out. With that, we are about to turn our attention to emotional safety. That's our next unit. So here's the million-dollar question we're about to address in the next unit. Are the students on your campus emotionally safe? If so, how do you know? And if not, what are we going to do about it? Until our next unit, have a great day.